cannot hear myself.
I know.
Welcome to This Week in Real Estate with Jonathan Harmon and Bryan Nale, your local experts on all things real estate in Middle Tennessee. Listen in as they discuss the current state of the market, the latest trends, and have a little fun while doing it. We do want to say the opinions voiced on this podcast are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individuals.
We muted. We're on.
Hey.
Bryan, do you remember? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Trent. I forgot.
Welcome back to This Week in Real Estate. We're putting the miggity Mac to Freddie Mac.
Dude, I love some Freddie Mac.
It's
not a band, by the way. If you're wondering if Freddie Mac, like, I don't know their singles. They don't have a single there.
Yeah, it was the male version of Fleetwood Mac. Yeah, it was Stevie Wonder instead of Stevie Nicks. No,
Welcome back.
That's interesting. Miggity Mac. So, I was sitting here. Do you remember probably not in high school, probably in like elementary or middle school, when you would say, I want a Fig Newton or elephant shoes, and you would like just lip it, and people would be like,
Yeah.
He said he loves me.
yeah.
Alligator muffin.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't know alligator muffin. I want a Fig Newton. I actually got sent to the principal's office for that one.
Ooh.
Yeah, because it looks not like Fig Newton.
Doesn't look like love either.
No, sir. All right. Well, welcome to This Week in Real Estate. We are starting out well. It's a good day. It's a Wednesday. We've had some pretty gnarly storms. What's up with that?
Yeah, the last 2 days, just out of nowhere.
I know. We have a feather flag for the brewery, and it's gone.
Gone.
I have no idea where it is.
MTSU had a football equipment truck. It's gone.
Did you see that? That video was crazy.
It looks like it picked it out. Just picked that right out. The only thing.
I know. It was wild. And I guess it was a little tornado. Did you guys see that? It was
an FO. And yeah, it tracked like it was a long
FO.
time.
That's a frozen orange. Those are delicious at the varsity.
Oh, man, I love the varsity.
Nice.
I think we need to do an on location at the varsity.
Yeah.
Let's go to Atlanta. Let's go.
I support that.
The original varsity. Don't go to one of the little outlier ones.
I mean, they're not terrible, but
It's not the same. No. I love getting screamed at the counter. It's great. All right, you got headlines. Let's do this.
So headline.
Okay.
Too ambitious here today.
All right, I got two headlines. The first one is out of our good friends at the Tennessee Housing Development Agency, THDA, First Time Homebuyer Program for the state of Tennessee, and they lowered their interest rates yesterday. No surprise, right? Rates have been falling. THDA, these bond programs,
they still tie it to bonds, right?
They don't change their rates every day like a lot of your conventional FHA, VA. Those loans, those rates change every day. These bond loans are a little more stable.
Because they get big chunks of money at a time, and
Right.
it's set, and then when that money runs out, they reissue another bond.
That's right. And so their current rates are for just the Great Choice Loan Program 6.375.
Oh,
So I mean we're getting in the low sixes here now, right? You could call that mid sixes, you could call that low sixes, whatever you want to call it.
it's the upper side of low.
What's really exciting though is that for the home ownership for the Brave program, which is going to be any veterans can participate in that program, any first responders can participate in that program. They're very specific on what that first responder job means. They actually have to be an EMT, firefighter, police officer. They can't work dispatch and things like that. They're actually got to be out there.
That's lame. Dispatch is harder than any of the other jobs.
We can get into that if you want to, but I can't change the rules, and we're not going to change the rules on this podcast. But anyway,
shut me down, y'all.
What's awesome about that? We've got a full show, man. We got a lot of things to talk about. What's awesome about that? If you know this program, you know that if the homeownership or the Great Choice Loan Program is at 6.375 and the homeownership for the Brave gets a 0.5 point discount on the interest rate, what does that put their rate at?
Oh, 5.875.
That rate starts with a 5, baby.
Yeah.
So we're moving there.
So in comparison, 6.375 is lower than a conventional at the moment,
Yes.
right? Like
Yeah.
at this exact moment.
Yeah. THDA is traditionally going to have pretty good rates, especially in a
Unless the rates are actively
rates
falling.
They can fall behind. But when rates were going up, THDA was doing great because it would take them longer to stair step up.
Right.
So that's my first headline. So really happy to see
Dude,
that.
that's a shiny penny headline.
It is a shiny penny. I could have moved it down there.
That's great, though.
You know what? Actually, I did. I wrote it on my notes to talk about THDA and shiny penny. So
You were just so daggum excited. You counted
it's
it
a
in.
headline too. That's a big news. That's
That is a
big
big
news
deal.
to have a program with a rate starting.
Well,
at
and I'll
5.
tell you, this particular market still allows people to use THDA,
Right.
And 3 years ago, this would have been an irrelevant
It
headline.
would not have mattered. It would not have mattered because THDA wouldn't get off the ground. No sellers were taking a THDA contract.
What?
Outside of maybe a couple of new constructions in some outlying areas.
Sure. What because THDA comes with income limits, so like factoring that in, approximately what is the top end house that somebody with a THDA loan in Rutherford County would buy?
Well, their purchase price limit across the state's $400,000.
Okay,
So you're not going to be able to go over that.
purchase price, not
Right.
loan amount.
Correct. Purchase price.
Interesting, and that's across the state.
It's across the state.
So that really kind of hinders Rutherford County.
Yes.
And like the Nashville MSA specifically.
And it's interesting as income limits go up, and for a lot of the state, income limits have increased. Please don't ask me to tell you the income limit right now because I can't do it off the top of my head. It just recently changed, but if it's but I know that if I see a household and they can be in the six figures and qualify for a THDA program.
And that was not the case for a very long time.
No, for a very long time it was like 97,000 in the higher markets, and this can be so. Like one shiny penny out there is Cannon County. It falls under the Nashville MSA, so you can go out to Cannon County and you can find a home way more affordable than you can in Rutherford County, but you're still going to qualify for the THDA income limits of Rutherford, Wilson, Davidson, Williamson County, and the kind of that Nashville MSA.
And coffee is not in the...
Coffee is not. So you have to watch out with these kinds of programs because if you cross over that county line in a Coffee County or in a Bedford County, your income limits change just like that, and you got to make sure that you're aware of it.
I wonder what the logic is for having the income limits vary, but the house purchase price not.
It's
you know
a
what I
good
mean?
question. Yeah, I don't really know. I think they wanted there to be a little bit of conformity in the market so that there's one less thing for realtors and lenders to have to keep their eye on, because when you start talking about, hey, you're pre-qualified for $375,000 in Cannon County, but $400,000 in Rutherford County, or and it can get really confusing because then not only that, but also you might not even be qualified in Bedford County because they are going to be over income limits. So like you're pre-qualified for Rutherford County, Cannon County, but only these numbers and it just gets really convoluted.
Yeah, I get that, but it also makes more sense. So a $400,000 house in Rutherford County is not a $400,000 house in Bedford,
Pulaski.
Coffee, or Cannon.
Yeah,
I mean, they're just not. It's
There's
not the same.
It's not the same. No, it's interesting, isn't it?
But they vary the income, but they don't vary the purchase price.
Right.
I don't know. I find that interesting.
So that wasn't always the case. That's a recent change. And sometimes I think with some of these programs, and this is complete speculation. This is off the cuff speculation, not even something I've put any thought into. But I wonder if maybe things have to change slowly over time. So like, hey, this year we're going to change this, and then in a couple of years we're going to come back and see if we can figure out a way to make the income limits more uniform. But they're going to go by area median income. That's always going to, and so they.
But if they do that, why would they not do that for house price as well?
Yeah, well, they used to. I think it used to be the average house price would kind of drive the purchase price limit.
And see, house price also dictates income limits to some extent.
It does. Well, and income, I'd say this way, incomes will dictate what you can get pre-qualified for. But also the amount
That's
of
what
debt,
I'm getting at, yeah.
Also the amount of debt that you carry. Somebody who has a credit card with a low balance and they make their monthly payments each month versus somebody who has 5 credit cards maxed out in a car loan. They may make the
Very
same
different.
income, but their purchase price is obviously going to be be different. I have one more headline.
Yeah.
This one I want to spend a little bit of time with. Not a lot, but really just kind of throw some data at you guys. The national average for home ownership from last year to this year is flat at 65.6%
Of American
households.
households.
Yeah. And so historically in 2016, that's when it hit its low point since going back to many decades ago. It's 62.9%. So we think about what happened in 2008, right?
You said 16?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so in 2008 we had the crash, right? It took a solid 8 years to reach the bottom of home ownership percentage. It's 62.9%.
That's interesting.
And what's crazy is right now we're at 65.6%. So you're talking about not a lot of variance here. The peak was in 2004. It's 69.2%. So from the peak in 2004 to the trough in 2016, it went from 69.2 to 62.9.
7% of Americans no longer owned a home.
Yep.
Like net.
Right. Now, more recently, it peaked. This isn't 2004 was the peak, but more recently, we had gotten all the way to 67.9% in Q2 of 2020. So from Q2 of 2020, which you think about that is really the start of COVID. That's very early COVID.
Yeah, we're getting
Q2 of 2020.
It's starting to buzz a little.
It peaked at 67.9%, and since then it's dropped to 65.6.
So I have a few possible thoughts on this. This is the first time I've heard this, so I'm shooting from the hip as well. So the first thing that's fascinating to me is that most people would say that the Great Recession, the housing piece of that, was essentially over in 2011.
Right. Yeah.
So it took 5 more years after that to hit the bottom of home ownership rate.
Right.
So I wonder if there were people that were holding on for dear life through 11, waiting for prices to come back up to not short sell, and then over that span of 5 years, they divested, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's a possibility. They're waiting for prices to come up. Then your 2020 numbers to now, the reality is it was very tempting in 22, 23, 22 especially, to sell, get all that money, because your house had hit a huge number, but then you might not have been able to buy, or you might have chosen not to buy.
You might have said, "Hey, I'm going to buy now. This is all going to come crashing down, and when it does, I'm going to rent for a year, and then when next year prices correct,
You got screwed, or you screwed yourself."
And I wonder if that didn't happen from 2011 to 2016 too.
Maybe
there was some of that
because people couldn't buy yet. If they short sold or got foreclosed on,
true, they couldn't buy for 7 years. That's a really good observation right there. But I do think that I remember in 2013, 2014, we bought our house in 2013, and I remember at some point along the way over the next couple of years, I was like, man, our house has really gone up in value. We should sell it. And we should rent for a year or two. These apartments are building look nice. They got these resort style pools. We'll just go rent.
Get a massage once a month. There was one that was throwing that in.
Gym and the thing, we'll go rent somewhere and then we'll come back in the market when it crashes. I'm so glad we never did that. I mean, it was you could just kind of see that like, hey, that might be a good idea, but that's a high risk move to make. I think I got another little theory on why this is happening. Why we're seeing this this move from 2020 at 67 to the national average now at 65. The rates of homeownership by age. So from the age of 45 to 54, you got 71% are homeowners. From 35 to 44, it drops below the national average. It's 62.2%.
From what was the age?
35 to 44.
Okay.
62.2% are homeowners. From under 35, only 37.4%.
So is it youth debt?
So, I think what's happening is that, you think about what you just said, all the people who sold in 2020, from 2020 up to now, right? They sold, but they didn't, from 2020 to 2023, 2022, they were selling a lot of those homes to hedge funds.
Yeah.
And so while those hedge funds were carving out that market, they were eliminating those first-time home buyers under 35.
I've been saying that for years now. Is
from the opportunity to get into real estate, and so now you got somebody that's 34 years old. There's what a 63% chance they're not a homeowner, and it's going to get harder and harder to get into.
Well, and you think about it, the people that were selling to the hedge funds, that age band there, that was the people that they were selling their first homes. That's what hedge funds were largely buying.
Right, they were moving up to their second, maybe their third home.
Yep, and so they were selling those out. And the reality, y'all, I've heard all kinds of speculation, and one of the things that you hear sometimes is, what do we do if the hedge funds ever divest all of their assets and they flood the market with inventory? Y'all, that is not their plan.
What they're gonna
That's
do.
not their plan.
Yeah.
Their plan. They will never sell that house.
Right.
I mean, maybe here and there if they need to take a loss.
As they run out of depreciation, they'll transfer title to a
Well, that's just it. Like AH4R, right? American Homes for Rent. There's like 10 of them.
yeah.
And so they depreciate it over the 7 years or whatever it is that 9
Yeah.
years or whatever that they take to depreciate. And then they move it from AH4R1 to AH4R2.
Yep.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
Yep.
And they will never sell that house.
This is never going to come back on the market. So it's crazy, isn't it? Like that is just absolutely wild
And it's
to
a
think
bunch of
about.
starter homes.
And it's a bunch of starter homes, and so that's what like the concern is, for because to get to that second, third level home, like that, where a lot of people may have what they call their dream home, or if it's not a dream home, it's at least the home that they know.
You got a stair step.
that they're gonna send their kids to prom from. They're gonna watch their kids grow up in. That's your second level, third level home, but you can't really get there.
Without
the
number
easiest
one.
way to get there is to go to number one and let that equity appreciate. Let
Unless
your
you're
value appreciate.
unless you're super good at saving, and who, I mean,
Well, it's
that's
hard,
a
man.
small number of people.
with inflation where it is, and with the cost of living where it is compared to salaries and how they haven't kept up with cost of living, it's really hard to save. Really difficult. Because I've talked to people, and you've heard me say this so many times. The best advice I can give you is if you think that you are comfortable with a mortgage payment at $2,000 a month, that probably isn't going to be a high enough budget for you. So let's see. And right now you're paying $1,500 a month for rent. Let's see if you can save $1,000 a month. And people look at me like, okay, yeah, thanks for the advice. And they're like, I can't do it.
I mean, what's the difference?
I can't save $1,000.
The difference is you're choosing to do it versus you have to do it because you're committed to that payment.
Right. Well, and they look at their lifestyle, and and I think you have a lot of people in that younger generation right now who are like, I don't want to be tied down to a house. I want to be able to. I want to have a life. I want to travel. I want to eat out. I want to go to do nice things. And it's cheaper. It is cheaper to rent right now than it is to own a home. But that's very short term thinking.
And interestingly enough, that homeownership rate dropped about 2%, right?
Yeah.
In Rutherford County, now maybe it's just a coincidence, okay, but in Rutherford County, approximately 2% of all homes are owned by AH4R in progress.
Oh, wow. I'd love to kind of aggregate that data.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Interesting for sure.
Okay, it's good stuff.
Good headlines.
I like it. Good conversation. All right, Trent, hit us, buddy. Ooh, I can't wait. Here it comes.
We got a whole lot of mirrors.
Hotel California lobby right there.
That is wild.
Where's the pink champagne on ice?
The zebra table's kind of fire.
Jonathan's speechless.
What?
It's a lot to look at.
Is that a still in the window?
I think it is. Or a bell, maybe?
I don't know.
Yeah, this is real.
Is there only one window in here, or are there skylights? Is there skylights in between the mirrors?
No.
Those
No,
big-
you can see the floor and the
no, the big white
Oh.
rectangles.
No, those are mirrors.
No, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all mirrors.
Those are mirrors, man.
What?
Yeah. I know.
I know.
Are y'all
what the
sure this
rest-
isn't part of a fun house or something?
What's the rest of the house look like?
Yeah.
Can we find the listing and see if there's like
On
if the whole house is just tricked out with mirrors?
So
I wish.
What's your like?
I don't hate this room. I feel like I say that too much.
You say that pretty much every week.
Y'all are, if Lacey's watching, don't worry, babe. Don't worry.
Just come home with 100 mirrors.
Well, it's interesting.
Got a new
So
inspiration.
think about like the patching. Like whoever buys this
Oh,
house
Lord.
is gonna have.
the patching. Yeah.
Oh man, like what's your repair proposal look like? Well, let's tell you where it starts.
Nope, that's
You're gonna have to
repair proposal. This would be cosmetic, and so you wouldn't get anything on that.
Really?
But they're at angles, so they can't be nailed. They have to be glued.
Yeah, that's gonna rip those walls to shreds. The ceiling, and I mean, you can tell me that's cosmetic all you want, but I'm still gonna ask you to fix it.
That would need to be in the purchase and sale agreement, not in the
Yeah.
repair proposal.
See, there's a pro tip.
There's a pro tip.
Man,
Hire some. You got to know when to hold them and know when to. I don't know. Whatever. This,
No one's
Burn it
mold
down.
them.
do you think burn it down? She said. Do you think any of these mirrors are like curved, so it's like funhouse mirrors where one makes you tall and
hope-
skinny and
I
one makes
hope
you short
so.
and fat?
I bet that's another room in the house.
Probably. That's a different room. All right, moving on. That's a good one.
I like it.
That's a good one.
I hope you
Man.
like your food when you eat it because you're gonna be
You're
like,
gonna see it everywhere.
I went to Nordstrom the other day and tried on some jeans, and they're all the same length, so they have to hem them all. And like, yeah, you just stand in front of that little thing, you know, when you're getting alterations in every mirror, every different way. It's weird looking.
it's uncomfortable. All
Yeah,
right,
that's what I look like from that angle.
market movers. Let's move the market. Moving, keep rolling.
What was the last one we did?
Cow cabinets?
I'll
Ugh,
back.
that was awesome. All right, so here's what I got for a market mover, and it's somewhat of a headline, but it's not. So I found an article, Business Insider article, and it talks about how why there is no crash pending. Okay. Because I think there's still a lot of folks that are on the fence that are waiting, and they assume that there's going to be some form of crash. Now this article cites a Lending Tree survey. 44% of Americans, this was in July, okay, believe that the housing market could still crash this year. And I'm going to extrapolate that and say within the next year, right?
Okay.
And get this one. This one hurts my heart a little bit. More than 1/3 of Americans say they want the market to crash. Wow. 33% of the population.
What data did I just give you?
Yeah.
Home ownership's 65%.
Interesting, right?
So a third of Americans, that's like
And
right at the percentage of Americans who don't own a home.
And they believe it's their only way to be able to afford a home.
yeah.
But they're essentially wishing ill will on the
other two-thirds
others.
of the country.
Isn't that wild?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, because all right, if I'm going to go down that road, okay, there's going to be a crash. Well, if you don't sell, it's just like a stock. If you don't sell when it's low, you didn't take any loss. So, like by 2000, what was it?
But
By
if-
2016 or so, everything that had been undone in the housing crash had been built back up.
Yeah, but in that short run, in order to have a crash,
Yeah.
people have to be in pain.
Right. Well, and people have to sell. That's
what I'm saying.
a good point. People have to be in pain.
You
Yeah.
don't have a crash without pain, because here's what happens. Let's say that I lose 20% of my home value today, right? And let's say that I bought it 2 years ago, and or let's say we dropped in some markets 40%, some markets 50%.
Yeah.
So if I lose 40% of my home value today, just like in 2008, right? And I bought it 2 years ago. Now we had some crazy appreciation in that amount of time,
Right.
but not that crazy.
Not that crazy. You're
So-
negative. You're underwater.
And then at that point, and you throw in fees and everything else, and then my job transfers me to Washington State.
Yeah.
Now what?
Now what? You're toast.
Yeah. Or my spouse passes away, or I get divorced, or any number of life events happen that,
you have
that
a home
force me to sell.
And you have a home that you cannot make back what you owe on it.
And in a lot of the cases, and this is and look, if you're the person that doesn't have this situation, then I can kind of understand the jealousy and the bitterness. But in a lot of those situations, especially over the last couple of years, you had a lot of folks that moved up. We talked about that. So they have rolled, 1, 2, maybe 3 homes worth of equity forward. And so they might have the equity in the house to sell, right? But that means that they're eroding essentially their net worth that they've built up over the last however many years, decade, 2 decades, whatever.
And I've always said this: home ownership is a wonderful part of or home equity is a wonderful part of your net worth. But there's only 2 ways to access it: either sell the asset or borrow against it. And that's when, especially when rates were really low, I would advise people all the time: don't take out a little bit more on the mortgage. Keep a little bit of the proceeds from your sale liquid, or invest them with whoever your financial advisor
Because you
might
can
be.
beat the rate.
Because you can beat the rate, but also like what's that? You'd be house poor. Like you may have a lower monthly mortgage payment by a couple $100, but a couple $100. What if you can throw 20 grand in a short term savings account that you don't have, or what if you're way behind on your retirement strategy? Why don't you take some of that money and kind of kickstart, give your retirement savings a shot in the arm to get back on track, so that you can have some sort of income draw when you hit retirement age.
So anyway, so that's yes, I agree. So the thing goes on, the article goes on to say, well, here's why you're wrong. Basically, it's not going to crash. And we've said this several times. It's the fundamentals, right? So if you've ever taken a base level economics class, you have supply and demand. Okay, and in this case, there's just simply not enough supply. And this is Lawrence Yun, NAR's chief economist, that's talking about that. And so if there's a vast shortage of supply, prices just simply, they can't crash. I mean, it just doesn't happen. And he says, depending on who you ask, and if you think about it, all of these things have a range, right? So right now, the U.S. is currently approximately 2.3 to 6.5 million units short of a healthy housing supply. And so that's based on what's the word I'm looking here? The month supply. What is that called? Yeah, it's inventory, but there's another term for it. Anyway,
It's not Kayce Schiller.
I've lost it. But anyway, 2.3 to 6.5. So 2.3 is like the minimum that we're behind, but we could actually support up to 6.5 million more units for sale.
Wow,
That's crazy.
it's a lot of homes.
So
Golly.
if you're that short on inventory, there is zero chance that prices are going to crash. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And that's with demand receding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if the rates hit like what we're talking, if they drop like what we've been talking about at that point, then that 2.3 to 6.5 adjusts up, because there's going to be even more people coming in. Now, some of them will have houses to sell, so hopefully it's kind of a wash.
That'll kind of unlock some inventory, right?
Yeah.
That needs to be unlocked. But that American Homes for Rent, they're not going to sell theirs.
No, and guess what? If rates drop enough that we're all getting back in, and inventory comes back on, guess who else comes back into the market?
Investors, baby, they're coming
all
back
day
too.
long.
Yeah,
Why would they not?
right.
It's pretty crazy. So, I would tell you, and the other thing is, house prices are expected to be up. They're up right now about 8% for on the year, on 2024. And the expectation is that they'll drop just a little, lose some of that appreciation that we've had, and we'll end the year, depending on the region, 2 to 5% up, which is a fairly historical normal appreciation.
2 to 5% spot on with where it should be.
But it's not going backwards.
Not going backwards.
Not going to happen.
No.
So if you're on the fence,
44% of Americans think that we're going to see a crash in the next 12 months.
it's crazy. If you think that, I don't know how else to say this, you're wrong.
Yeah. And my wife will always be like, well, Bryan, you got to remember who you surround yourself with. You're in the real estate industry. You're around lenders. You're around realtors. You're around insurance people. You're around people who have a vested interest in the housing market doing well.
Sure.
And
we're eternal optimists.
And we are. And she loves and hates that about me at the same time. Right. But
my wife too.
and I remember going into 2022 and thinking, okay, the rates are probably going to go up a little bit. But everything's going to be okay. Man, it's been hard. The last 2 years have been very, very hard. But then she'd be like, well, Bryan, I told you this was going to happen. I told you this. But even she doesn't think that there's going to be a crash in house prices.
No.
If you're in that 44%, gosh, I mean, take out, what do you think the percentage of people who work in the real estate industry is? You know, from appraisers who probably don't see it coming to
10%.
So there's only like 30% of people who aren't involved in real estate. I didn't do that math right. 40.
I don't know.
So, I mean,
But there's some realtors even
Yeah.
that have given the advice of waiting.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard it.
yeah, that's true.
So here's what I'll tell you: you're missing out.
Yeah. Especially go back to what we said at the top of the show in the headlines. You know, 37.4% of people under 35 own homes. If you're under the age of 35 and you haven't started your homeownership journey, then you're not going to. You're going to.
You're way behind.
You're behind. Yeah, you're behind.
And
that doesn't mean it's too late.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just a matter of putting a plan together and going forward. And I would pose this question, okay, to the 44% of the people out there, okay, and I'm dead serious with this question. Tell me what causes the crash. Tell me what scenario, what situation, what change to our current environment,
What's the
what
catalyst?
is it? What's the catalyst that's going to cause that crash? If you can give me a compelling catalyst, then maybe I'll change my mind.
I've asked that question to a lot of people in the last 2 or 3 months, and nobody has a good answer.
Because there isn't one.
They just think it's been going up for so long it has to come down.
I think they're manifesting wishful thinking,
That too.
and you're wishing pain on, 66% of the population.
Yeah.
That's pretty crappy, dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, I said it. This is my most controversial moment.
That was a great market mover.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact is it's almost like what's not going to move the market? A correction in house prices. That's not going to be a market mover.
Not gonna happen. Nope.
Shiny pennies.
Yup. Shiny pin.
Back to you.
You got one and I got one.
Yeah, well, I was going to have two. One of them was going to be THDA. We already covered that. So the other one, and this dovetails right with everything else. This theme of the show has been, man, you would think that we really did some show prep this week.
Y'all did.
Vacancy has remained under 1%. Home ownership vacancy has remained under 1% since the first quarter of 2020.
Home ownership or home rentals?
Ownership. So if you own your home, what are some reasons that you may vacate the home? You're moving, you're trying to sell, you have to move across town, move across state, move to another state. So now
Leaky pipes.
Now you own a home, but it's vacant.
Okay.
That has remained under 1% since Q1 of 2021.
Wow.
That means that houses are selling. And right now, where it's taking a little bit longer to sell a house, it's not to the point where you have to go ahead and move to the next home, the next town, the next place. You are able to stay in your home until it's time to move.
Interesting. So the reason I asked that about rentals, because rental vacancy for the first time in a very long time in Nashville, rental vacancy actually went up a little bit.
Yeah.
They and the speculation there is that there was a little bit of an oversupply of multi-unit rental properties.
And that was predicted.
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing that prediction towards the end of last year that was going to happen, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't know about that." But
here's the thing:
but the people that were predicting it were smart folks, and so I gave it a lot of credit.
Well, it went up a little bit, but it went from 4% vacancy to 6% vacancy.
Yeah.
So it's like 6% is still pretty dadgum,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Normal is around 10% vacancy, just so you know. So we're still way above.
Yeah.
Interesting. So my shiny penny does not have to do with that. My shiny penny is that starting this morning, we did a teacher delivery for our teacher of the month, and we've got one tomorrow, and we've got some heroes, and we're trying to get caught up from the summer. Getting stuff scheduled in the summer is a challenge.
Yes.
And so we've gotten to the point where we're able to do these as surprises. Missy does a good job of scheduling them. And so we got to surprise a teacher over at Bradley Academy today in front of her entire faculty, like all of her colleagues.
Very nice.
It was awesome.
Very nice.
Awesome. So shout out to Miss Harrison over there. You're doing good work. And I'm not going to say who the next ones are.
Way to go, Miss Harrison.
But we've got a good one tomorrow. and then 2 of them on Friday. So I'm very excited about
Very
that.
cool.
And Bryan participates in that. Several other local businesses do as well, and it's pretty awesome.
Let's go to a pro tip.
So I have a pro tip today, and it involves overbuilding. So one of the things that we're seeing a lot of right now is that because of all the things that we talk about all the time, there's a lot of folks that are choosing to stay in their homes and add on or renovate or what have you to the home that they have, rather than sell it and move somewhere. I mean, here's the thing: if you're sitting at 2.25% interest rate, you know, and you don't love where you live, but you could, it might make more sense to invest $50,000 or $100,000 into the house than to sell it and then double your payment.
Yeah.
Right. So I get it. Okay. What you got to be real careful of is that at some point that house will be sold. So whether that is 3 years from now, when rates finally hit the number that makes you comfortable, you know, you downsize, you upsize, you die, at some point that house will get sold. Okay. And so you got to be really, really cognizant, got to be really, really careful about overbuilding for your neighborhood, for your area. And that's when Lacey and we just sold her house. We just got married a couple years ago, and we sold the house that she had coming into the marriage, and we're going to renovate the house that I had or have. And so when we were like discussing this, we talked about doing an addition onto her house. Well, the addition that we would have done to make it what we wanted would have overbuilt for the neighborhood. And so what happens is, if you're the largest house in the neighborhood, then neighborhoods have a range, right? So houses in this neighborhood go for $400,000 to $600,000. Okay. So no matter what size your house is within that subdivision, within that neighborhood, it has to fall in that range. So if you're way above on square footage, that means your price per square foot is going to tank because you still got to stay in that range.
Right.
Now you may be able to push it a little bit, but you're not going to be able to push it a lot.
Right.
So if you've got 4,200 square feet and the next biggest house in the neighborhood is 2,500 square feet, you're in trouble.
You're going to take a haircut.
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
So you got to be real careful about that. And then the other piece of that is the finishes that you choose, right? If you go all out and you put mirrors all over everything or whatever, you know, you got to pay attention to what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't paint your room the color that you want. I'm not talking about that, right? I'm talking about overdoing it for what your neighborhood supports.
Yeah. Don't put in elaborate crown molding if that's not common in your neighborhood.
Or if you choose to do that, you do it because you want to do it.
And you're going to enjoy it for a long time.
Or a short time, whatever, but you're not going to get your money out of it.
Right.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So have realistic expectations. And then the last piece of that is something called a super use, and that's another one that falls into that. If you're in a subdivision that has no in-ground swimming pools, and you're the only one that puts an in-ground swimming pool, right? Then when an appraiser comes in, they're looking for comps. There are none that have a swimming pool. Then guess what? They're not going to count your swimming pool.
You get no value for it.
If you build a 5-car garage, detached garage, and you have a 2-car attached, and there is literally no example of that anywhere that's comparable, you're not going to get value for that. Here in Rutherford County, if you live in a subdivision and you happen to be the one that has a basement and you're the only one, you're not going to get value for that.
Yeah. Enjoy it. Have fun in your basement. Have fun in your pool.
That's right.
Work on your cars. Do your things.
And I'm not saying don't do it. What I'm saying is understand that you're not going to get value for it
Yeah.
like you think you should.
Right. Accessory dwelling units fall in that category
Yep,
too.
absolutely.
So, yeah, I've seen people who will build a detached 2-car garage and throw an apartment up above it, and they're shocked when they see what value they're getting for that, because it's not square footage living space like your primary residence.
No,
It's
they'll throw you 20 grand or something on an appraisal and call it good.
Yep.
Yep, that's true.
That's a great pro tip.
So if you have any questions about that, if you're thinking about a renovation, if you're thinking about adding on, call me. And I'm not going to charge you for it, but just give me a shout. Tell me what you're thinking about. Let's talk about your neighborhood. If there's something out there that's available, let's go look at some other houses in your neighborhood. Not for you to buy them, but just for you to see
What others?
this is what a house in your neighborhood looks like.
Yeah. And that's important too on the other side too. Like if you're thinking about doing a remodel or a renovation, and you think you want to go with laminate countertops to save a little bit of money because you don't care, but every other house in your neighborhood has got granite or marble or
Quartz.
then you may not want to do laminate.
Yep. Oh,
It may not be important to you, but when you sell the house,
that's right.
you're gonna that's gonna be tough.
And again, do it if you want to do it, but just understand the repercussions of it so that you're not surprised when you go to sell it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got.
Nice. Great
Good show, y'all. Good show. Any other announcements?
Yeah, we got all kinds of stuff. I always talk about Cedar Glade here, but we got all kinds of cool stuff happening there. Missy is about done with the signups for Oktoberfest. That's going to be September 22nd.
It's gonna be
Dude,
so soon.
that is-
Stop smiling.
it is going to be so much fun, y'all.
That's awesome.
We're going to have Trent out there with cameras
Oh, yeah,
because
for sure,
it's
for
going to
sure.
be epic.
Yep.
And anyway, so check that out. We'll have that posted hopefully in the next
3 words.
Tricycle Grand Prix. Oh, I cannot wait. If you don't know what that is, watch Revenge of the Nerds. It was on there. It's going to be fantastic. So we'll have that posted in the next day or two for the signups. And what else we got?
Pinball in the tap room.
We got a Popeye pinball machine. It's
That's
freaking
I'm
awesome.
gonna go play before I head out to lunch.
It's pretty spectacular.
What else is going on?
I don't know.
It's the school's getting ready to start. I think everybody's kind of just in hunker down mode.
Oh, yeah, duh. We have the teacher hoppy hour on Friday, 3:30 to 6, $3 pints for all educators. So come in and hang out and decompress before
School starts
decompress before you get depressed. How about that? No, we love teachers. I was a teacher. I was a high school teacher and wrestling coach. And Missy's husband is a high school vice principal. We got teachers all around us, and man, we just
Thank you to the teachers.
oh man, you guys, it's a noble profession.
Yeah,
That's for
It
sure.
really is. Good stuff, y'all. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of This Week in Real Estate with Jonathan Harmon and Bryan Nale, your go-to resource for all things real estate in Middle Tennessee. Be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. We will see y'all on the next one.
Now for the nitty-gritty. Premise Mortgage Company is a subsidiary of Premise Bank, a member FDIC. Premise Mortgage NMLS number 1894879, BK number 1042893, ML number 1894879. As always, all loans are subject to credit approval and product guidelines. Equal housing lender.